Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm glad that you found us here on YouTube and have joined our tribe of survivors post Narcissist. Just remember to subscribe and like this video if you agree with some of the things that I say. Today I want to talk about being an empath, and it's a little bit of a different topic because not everybody's an empath, but I think a lot of empaths find themselves with a narcissist, or a narcissist is attracted to us. And I didn't even know what an empath was. I hadn't even heard the term empath until I started researching narcissism and trying to figure out what happened to my relationship. My entire life, I thought I was just sensitive. I didn't know why. I just thought that was my personality. And I didn't know that it actually had a name, empath. And, there's a lot of videos out there about, even calling an empath a superpower or a psychic ability or things like weird things like that. Now, I can agree with some of the things that they say, but some of it is a bit far out there for me. What I do know is that I've always been able to detect, and this is what gets me. Like, I've always been able to kind of detect the feelings of everyone in every situation without people having to tell me. Even when I was young, I think that's when I was young, I loved going to parties and hanging out with friends, and it was always just so much fun. The atmosphere was always so good. It made me feel so good. But if I ever walked into a situation that was bad, no one had to tell me about it. I knew. And looking back on it, other things that I think a lot of empaths can relate to is like we like antiques. If an empath walks into an antique store, they're just in awe. They can almost feel the energy and the feelings that old items have, or old buildings, or old things. You can almost feel it. And I remember even when I was, in my early 20s, if a friend of mine introduced me to a guy, and then, how you meet them, and the first thing that girls do is, you're going to take, a bathroom break together, and that's when they ask you, so what do you think? And I remember there were times when I thought that I couldn't understand why some of my friends were with the guys that they were introducing me to, and I had to kind of lie about it. I'm like, oh, he seems nice. And meanwhile, internally, I thought he was a dick, and I didn't understand why. Like, he didn't do anything. I just met this guy. But, I would get those intuitions. And I remember one in particular. I was in my mid-20s, and I was actually working at the time in this like bar or something, and a friend of mine brought in the guy that she had just started dating, and I just met him. I shook his hand, and she's all happy, that she brings this guy in, and they just went on a date, and then she brought him over to where I was working to introduce him to me. And I just looked at him, and I was just, oh my God, I felt scared. I felt like he was angry. I felt a lot of anger from him. Like, maybe it was, how some people have like a angry resting face. I kind of got that from him, and like he looked like he was angry even though he wasn't. Anyway, I got that from him, and I was looking at her, and I couldn't really understand why she was so happy being with him. And it was weird. I remember, like, I wanted to tell her, I'm like, well, he seems like a monster. You know, but obviously I couldn't say that. All I did was shake the guy's hand. I just, and say, it's nice to meet you. But I'm looking at him going, I think he's a monster. I just had this bad feeling about him, and I'm looking at his face, and I'm just like, and I couldn't understand. When I saw him, I saw a monster, and I saw her, and she was all happy and gleaming, with this new guy. Well, it turned out a couple months later, it went completely tits up, and she ended up having to get a restraining order. The man did end up being a monster. I'm like, and I was just like, well, duh. But the thing is, I think I only had met him one other time since that first meeting, but I knew. So anyway, that's like what, and I'm sorry to go off on this because I don't know how many of you out there can relate to this, but empaths tend to be like that. They can really sense an environment, a person. We know we listen a lot. We're in tune to feelings. We can get the feeling of environment and people and things, and why is it that when we come across a narcissist, like an energy vampire, we can't detect it? And the reason is, and this is what I think the reason is, because a narcissist is like a mirror, right? Because we tend to be very, very energetic, uplifting people, and we can detect so many things and feelings. But a narcissist doesn't have like those nice, good feelings. They don't know how to make them. But what they do is they become like a reflector shield. So when an empath meets them and they put out a good energy to when they meet someone, it just get that exact same energy that gets bounced back to them, and it's a trick, right? Like when we ended up getting this perfect feeling about the narcissist, but that's not a feeling that we're getting from them. It's our feeling that gets exactly bounced back to us and reflected back to us or mirrored back to us from them. And that's what we absorb and know. And, as an empath, we think that we have found our soulmate and such perfect being, but it wasn't them. It was us that got bounced and reflected back to us. It wasn't their true self that we were detecting when we met them and when we started to know them. It was us. So of course we felt love, and we felt all this perfect, happy soulmate, everything, because as an empath, instead of detecting who they really were and being able to feel everyone else's feelings, what we felt for the first time, some of us, was exactly us, because that's what a narcissist will do with an empath and with a relationship. They're mirroring you, so everything that you put out just kind of got bounced back to us, and it confused us. And instead of us getting their true self, we just got our own self. And I think that's what happens when an empath meets a narcissist, because how come our whole lives we were able to kind of detect situations and feel everyone's feelings and really get a good hold of situations, except with the narcissist, and they're the one that did us the most damage. And I think that's why it hurt us all so bad, because we weren't ready for it. And that's something we're always kind of a little bit ready for, right? So I was just I was just thinking about that, going, I've always been able to pick out all my girlfriends' bad boyfriends and good guys and bad guys, and in a lot of situations, like I had traveled so many places when I was in my 20s, you know, I went through over 30 countries by myself. You know, as a single female traveler, I found myself in so many different situations, and I was always okay. You know, I just followed my intuition, I trusted my instincts, and I was always able to travel and go anywhere. But when someone meets a narcissist, like all your normal defenses against someone who's so toxic and evil, we just don't, there's no tools that we have. Everything that we normally use to detect things like that get used completely against us. And it's just something that I know that I honestly don't think there's a lot of enough information out there about that I think it's a good thing to get out. So if you're an empath and you're listening to this and you're wondering, how did I fall for narcissists when I was always able to detect whether someone's a good guy or a bad guy, but and it's because the narcissist completely reflected your feelings. You weren't feeling their feelings, you were feeling your own feelings. And that's why you fell for it. That's why we all fell for it. And it's not our fault. So it's something to think about as an empath, but why this happened. Because we're always wanting to know why. It helps to heal when you kind of try to figure out why, you know. And that might be a very small piece to the puzzle. We'll see. But thank you guys so much for listening to me. This was a bit of a different talk, I know, but I really appreciate all the support you guys are giving me, and I'm glad that you found us here. Please remember to subscribe, as we all heal and are all survivors post-narcissist.